Hey everyone, welcome back to Cooking Outside the Box, where we are coming back from a year hiatus, and I'm so excited to share with you some of the new recipes we've been trying out. And of course, what better way to kick it off than with tacos? Today we're going to be starting off with poblano pork ground tacos with homemade corn tortillas and kiwi salsa. So let's get started. Alright, so to get started with our corn tortillas, we're going to get this started first because we're going to want to let the dough set for some time. So what I have here is 2 cups of organic masa hirina. You can find this in your local grocery store. The brand I'm using here is Bob's Red Mill, which is a pretty common brand that everyone's used to. And then I also have 2 cups of water, and then we're also going to get half a teaspoon of sea salt. The key part here is that you want the water temperature to be about 140 degrees, so that way everything can melt in and doesn't get sticky and it forms a dough. So here we go. We're gonna go ahead, actually before we get started, let me get the half teaspoon of sea salt started first. Tacos. So as I said, 2 cups of the masa harina, we have half a teaspoon of sea salt, and then we also have 2 cups of hot water at the temperature being 140 degrees. This is quite an essential step. You don't want to overlook this just because if it's any colder, it will not form the dough. So I'm just going to start off slowly here, pouring a little bit. I'm going to start off with 1 cup, and you're just going to mix it with your hands. It is going to be hot, so just be prepared. It's not this is not the most comfortable task to make. If you are a Latina like myself, you know pretty much that burning your hands is part of half of our cuisine and making here. Alrighty. Okay. And you want to keep pouring the water in until the dough reaches a pretty good consistency. It should be firm and springy when touched, not dry or sticky. And then when it's done, we're going to let it rest with a damp towel covered over it for about an hour. That gives you plenty of time to prep the other ingredients, which means that we'll be moving on to the kiwi salsa. Just going to keep rolling it around, making sure it's getting every part of the dough. I'm just going to add just a little more water here. And you can use store-bought tortillas if you prefer for this recipe. I just think making your own is such a better way, and you make it, I would say this makes about 24 corn tortillas, and the bag costs maybe $2. So if you're on a budget, this is really the better way to go. All right. And I just want to make sure I'm squishing in all of that salt still. All right, perfect. Here we go. Get it in here. All righty, almost there. All right, and as you can see, it's not sticky, it's springy a little bit. Let me put just a tab more water here. And if you've ever made if you've ever made tamales, this is kind of the similar process here. A little bit of burning the hands, a little bit of torturing your nails if you are like me and love to get it done. This is not the best part, so make sure that you don't have long nails, otherwise you're going to be picking out this dough out of your nails for quite some time. All right, so this is a pretty good size. We're going to stick that in, and then like I said, we want to wrap it with a damp cloth. All right, here we go. Bringing it out water here. All right, we're just gonna cover this baby, like I said, for an hour. Just gonna push it in here. All right. Okay, now on to the kiwi salsa. So now we're on to the next step where we're gonna be making the kiwi salsa. So we're gonna go ahead and chop half a cup of tomatoes. So I just have Roma tomatoes, excuse me. Cannot talk this afternoon. All right, so just gonna get here, a couple slices. And this is gonna be a garnish for the tacos, so I'm going to cut them, dice them pretty small. Just make sure, I believe this is about half a cup. We're gonna finish off the tomato just in case anybody wants extras. And I'm pretty sure you're probably thinking, kiwi salsa, what? But whenever I tried this, the way that it blends with the pork and the poblanos, it's magical. It's such a difference. All right, and I went ahead and peeled the kiwi. So that was gonna be half a cup of diced tomatoes. Then the kiwi is gonna be half a cup of diced kiwi as well. So here we are, go ahead. I will recommend, I usually try to use a peeler when I peel kiwi, but it also depends on how ripe it is. So this time I actually had to go ahead and just use my knife. And again, you want to make small dices because this is part of a garnish for the tacos. Just put that one in there, and then get one more in here. So usually I just like to go long ways, and the reason why I hold it is so that the slices hold in place and it's not just going all over the cutting board. Perfecto. Righty. Make sure we get all that in there. All right, and now we want 3 tablespoons of lime juice to top in there. Let me go ahead and grab my squeezer real fast. Wash off some hands here. Grab a towel real fast so that I don't chop off my hand. That would not be good for this episode. We'll save that for the next round of Halloween. So, go ahead. I always dice the end. I feel like it sits better in the squeezer. So if you're wondering why, that's just a habit of mine. I'm a big tequila advocate, as we all remember. So, you know, you got to make it easy where you can. All right. There is 1, 2. And for good measure, 3. And the reason why I like to do this recipe in this step is because it does allow that hour for the corn tortillas to go ahead and for the dough to rise. So that way by the time that you are done making these ingredients, everything's going to be ready to prep and it's just a one and done. All right, there we go, 3. Okay, and then now we just want 1 tablespoon of red minced onion. So we got this gorgeous guy right here. And the way I usually like to cut into onions is I like to just take it the way it is with the skin on. And I have found that if you just slice into it, you can actually peel some of the skin off a lot faster instead of feeling like you're peeling garlic, which I think I can speak for everybody when I say nobody likes peeling garlic. It is probably one of the most tedious things that we get to do that takes up the most time of any recipe. And as you can see, I'm not measuring everything. Like I said, this is more of like a pico de gallo, basically, salsa kind of topping. So if you've made pico de gallo, if you're a Latina like myself, you pretty much know what a tablespoon of red onion minced is. So, ooh, actually, hold on, did that backwards. This is the way. So when you're cutting an onion, you'll want to go ahead and cut slivers like this. And this way, when you go horizontally, it's already going to dice it, and you aren't having to fight with it in the other way that we were about to cut it. Just be careful that you don't slice your finger off, because that can happen. All right. All right, I would say that's about a good tablespoon right there. Okay. Perfecto. All righty. Just rinse real quick. All right. Now, the next step here is going to be the cilantro. Because what is a salsa without cilantro, right? So here we are. We have a couple of these little guys. We don't need a lot in here. We don't want to overpower the kiwi and everything. So I'm just taking a good sprig, about this much. Hopefully this is catching it. And we're just going to really rough chop it very smally. And if you're not a big cilantro fan, you can, cut the amount of cilantro in half and still get just a little bit. I will say the lime really breaks down cilantro. As somebody who has the genetic for the soap taste, I have found that I can enjoy cilantro as long as there's lime juice, very heavy lime juice. All right, so that is going to be a good amount. We just want to sprinkle that in there. All the colors here, looking gorgeous, looking gorgeous. All right, and then just a little bit of black pepper. And then of course you want salt so we can break down that acidity. And I will put the measurements in for everybody who needs that. Like I said, I've been making this for a couple of times and it's kind of just secondhand nature at this point. So let's see here. Get some tongs. Toss this baby up. Oh yeah, that looks gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. And it smells amazing. Oh my God. I think I might want to add just a little bit more tomato. Looks like I missed a spot. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'm gonna add just a little bit more tomato. This is the great thing I love about cooking personally, is because the recipe is what you can make it, and you can make your own modifications that you see fit. I know that with this, I definitely have had times where I forgot an ingredient or I forgot to add it in, and it was just as good. So let's go ahead and add this baby in here, give it a little bit more color. Oh yeah, I did chop this properly, but it looks like I didn't chop it all the way. Chef problems, am I right? Okay. There we are. Gordon Ramsay, if you're watching this, I apologize. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and let this sit. Meanwhile, we're going to take on the next steps to get our poblano meat mixture going. So we have our poblanos ready. We're going to go ahead and get these sliced and then diced. So what I went ahead and did was removed all the membranes, removed the seeds. Now I'm going to press it down just a little bit so I can get a really good grip here. And then from here, slice. It's just like a bell pepper consistency. There we go. It's there. Trying not to chop some fingers off. Trying not to make it to the ER room. Haven't met my deductible yet, so. Alright. And you just want to chop them pretty good, just like a good taco filling, right? So it doesn't have to be beautiful, but a nice rough chop here. Alright. Scoot those babies aside, make room for the other guy. So again, pressing down, excuse me. Long slices. Okay. And then from here, again, rough chop. I like to make sure that they're even, that way I can get them up against the knife, and it helps me control the slices a lot easier. So way for others, screwing up my manicure in this process, but like I said, can't be a chef without some indentions in these designs here on your hands. So there we go. Now we're going to go ahead and thin slice our red onion here. So again, skin on, sliced in half, pulling off the skin, and if you pull too much, it's fine, it's not a big deal. Just you want to try to get as close to the top. But if you're like me, who is very much a perfectionist, I want it to be even. So I'm just going to try to get it all there. Perfecto. All right. And then from here, I'm going to slice off the butt. Other one. Okay. And with this way, I usually just go from the farthest and just start dicing this way. Because remember, we want thin strips. And then as it gets shorter, you just want to go ahead and lay it down and still, again, from the closest edge, slivers. I feel like I'm giving literally a slicing lesson over here when I have the worst knife techniques. Okay, so now we've got part of the filling for our tacos. I usually like to break up the onion just so I make sure that they're spread apart, none of them are getting stuck together. As you saw with the tomatoes, it can happen. So here we go. Slivers, slivers, slivers. Red onion is honestly probably my favorite onion of them all. I do love sweet onion, but there's just something about the color of red onion and the way that it complements any dish that really just brings out all the flavors and the colors together. Alrighty, that is good enough. Okay, so now we're gonna get these babies into the skillet, and I'll meet you over there at the stove. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and heat a tablespoon of olive oil. Go. Gonna let that heat up. I usually like to turn on the pan and get the pan warm. Something that I learned from Gordon himself is that he always says, turn on the pan, make sure it's heated, and then add the olive oil. You don't want to turn it on at the same time and then add the olive oil at the same time, because then you're cooking the olive oil even more. So that's a helpful tip. Remember, turn on your pan first, get it nice and hot, and then let the olive oil into the pan. This has already been sitting. I can feel it just a little hot. And we're gonna go ahead and get our onions and poblanos in first. these guys in. This, and just move that around with your hand. Don't burn yourself. And we're gonna go ahead and let that sizzle over for about 4 minutes until soft and lightly charred, and then we're gonna go ahead and add the pork in the next steps. Okay, now that the onions and poblano peppers have been charring for a little bit, I'm gonna go ahead and add in the pork. And this is just 1 pound of pork. If you're making this for more than, I would say, 3 people, I would double the up to 2 pounds. And I'm trying to break it as I'm as I'm putting it in the pan so that it's a little bit easier to break up, especially with the veggies. Hands real quick. And then from here, we want to do a tablespoon of taco seasoning. I am just going to use the organic taco seasoning mild. You can get this at Whole Foods. There are other ones at other grocery stores that will suffice. Now, if you mess up in this process and add the entire taco packet, it will taste just as delicious. I have done that myself, and it was actually really, really, really good. So, don't worry about messing it up. Remember, cooking's supposed to be fun. It's not a chore. So, alright, so I'm just going to mix this around, and I'm going to wait for this guy to go ahead and get browning. Alright guys, so while our pork is going ahead and finishing off cooking, we're going to go ahead and get started on our corn tortillas, so that way when that baby is ready, we can get these loaded and get supper on the table. So, as you can see, we have our lovely corn dough. I'm only going to take a little bit. You want just enough, I would say, to fit in your hand, kind of like a little meatball, so to speak. Let me see if you guys can see that. So I have pretty small hands, but this is about a good size, because when we go ahead and put it into the tortilla press, it's gonna flatten out and make it a lot bigger. So what we're gonna do is take some parchment paper, and you can get one of these either on Amazon, in your local Mexican market, anything like that. And voila, we have our first corn tortilla. I'm going ahead and putting this in my tortilla holder, and you will see why here in a short bit. All right, as we can see, the pork is beautifully browning, so we're going to go ahead and add 1 tablespoon of tomato paste. And then from there, we are also going to add 2 tablespoons of chicken broth. And I usually use low sodium just because pork already has such a high salt content. So we're going to go ahead and put 2 in there. Alright, that's going to pick up all those juices, like I said, when we were adding the seasoning in. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce this down, turn off the heat, and we're going to go ahead and stir this. I really wish technology would give us the luxury of smells, because the smells that come from this dish specifically are phenomenal. Between the kiwi salsa, the lime crema we're about to make, and this pork filling, it's just phenomenal. If you see some big chunks, just break them up with your spoon. Yes, yes, looks so delicious. I'm so excited for dinner. Okay, so we've gone ahead there. Our griddle over here, I'm not sure if you can see that over here, but we'll capture that soon here in a minute. I'll move the camera so you guys can see. That is going to be where we're about to prepare our corn tortillas. So since the pork is mostly cooked, I turned off the heat, and I'm going to let the tomato paste and the chicken broth and all the seasonings blend in there. Okay, so for the lime crema, all you need is just a little small bowl like this guy. And I'm taking sour cream, just a nice big dollop right here. Let's do 2 just for good measure. And then I'm gonna go ahead and take my lime and just squeeze it in there. I'm even going to take it out of the squeezer just to make sure that I'm getting all of this juice. All right. Let me just rinse my hand real quick so that my hands don't burn too bad here. And then all you have to do is slowly, and I say slowly because if you mix this very quickly, it will splatter everywhere. But you want the acidity to break down the sour cream, and it's going to give it this very liquidy, creamy consistency. So as you can see, I am just slowly mixing it in. And then as I feel more comfortable with the liquid from the lime juice, I can mix it faster. And you want to mix it faster so that the consistency is thinner, because sour cream naturally is a thick consistency, as we all know. And let's see here. Actually, I think it could maybe use an extra little bit of lime. So always test. Rule number 1, you always want to test your food. So let's put a little more lime juice in there. And again, don't forget, same thing with the consistency. You want to make sure, sorry guys, I'm pretty sure that was a little loud for you. You want to make sure that you don't splatter the lime juice everywhere when you're mixing this. So slow and low, as we like to say in the cooking world. And if it gets too runny, you can always add more sour cream. So yeah, this is what we want. We want to go ahead and see a nice consistency that we can dribble on the tacos. And taste test. Yes, so much better. All right. And all we're going to do here is just place them on there. And what I like to do is in between each parchment paper, I kind of take it apart and just hold it back. And that way, whenever the tortilla is done cooking, I can reuse that parchment paper. This guy is definitely a little more thin. And if you don't have a tortilla press, you can always roll it out as well. It is not required. And as long as you see that golden color right here, this is one right here. This one is perfect. Where you see the golden is the consistency that you want. Okay. And if you still have some of the white, just go ahead and keep flipping it one more time until then. Even spraying just a little bit more oil down onto them. All right. Just make sure. You don't want to cook them too long because then they become hard. So I would say right about here. Make sure there's some oil on this guy. All right, and now we are next ready for the plating. And there you have it, guys. Look at these babies and their gorgeousness. We've got the lime crema, we've got the poblano pork mixture, we've got the kiwi salsa in there, and the homemade corn tortillas. I cannot wait to take a bite, and I can't wait for you guys to try this at home. Please share your thoughts, Feedback, comments are all welcome. Thanks so much for sticking with me through this, and I hope you love it just as much as I do. Till the next one.